Now before we talk about any new chords, let's talk a little bit about picking, about the right hand. Now in acoustic guitar, it's not uncommon for people not to use a pick at all, and perhaps as you're watching this video you don't have a pick. It's not necessary. The advantage of not using a pick is that you don't have to learn how to hold the thing, which is kind of a new technique. The disadvantage is that using only your thumb or thumb and fingers, the sound is pretty soft, and even with a steel string guitar it may not project as well as with a pick. So I recommend that you learn to play both ways. Now I'm going to show you a little bit about the pick right now. Now holding a pick is actually a very natural motion. Your hand is just dangling on the end of your arm, and turn it over and let the natural motion of your muscles bring your thumb and forefinger together, and then place the pick in between. When you bring your hand back to the guitar, you can adjust the pick a little bit so that it's pointing straight down at the body of the guitar. It should be perpendicular to the strings. And then the right hand is moving in a natural, comfortable arc across the sound hole. All right, now other than that, it gets down to specialized motions of the pick, which we'll be talking about as we go along. But there's one other thing I want to say about the pick on acoustic guitar. Electric guitar players tend to use heavy picks. On acoustic, I recommend a light to medium pick, and the reason is that a lighter pick brings out the sound of the guitar more. It makes it ring, and since we're strumming a lot, it's going to make the guitar sound bigger. So when you're shopping for picks, get a light to medium pick and see how that feels. All right, using the chords that we've already learned, the open position chords, let's work on some strumming patterns. And I'm going to be using a pick, but of course you're free to use your thumb or fingers as you wish. Now the first pattern is very simple. You just play one stroke of the pick for every beat of the music. And let's make up a little chord pattern here. We'll go from E to D to A, and just back and forth around those three chords. All right, play with me. Here we go. All down strokes. 3, 4. Now even as I was playing that pattern, I couldn't help but put in a little upstroke there. It feels so natural. So let's talk about upstrokes. Picking basically has two parts to it. There's the downstroke and the upstroke. And you probably even accidentally hit some upstrokes once in a while. It sounds good. What you're doing is helping to fill out the rhythm. So a typical pattern, just on an E chord that would include down and up, might be something like this. What you're doing is working on a repetitive pattern, something that you can use on every chord, the same. All right, let's play that across our progression, E, D, and A. Here we go. 3, 4. Now, you're making those chord transitions clean. That's really, really important. And as I said before, that's something to work on as we continue. You can stop the tape and work out each one of these little patterns, and then you'll be more prepared for the next thing that we do. Now, what we are going to talk about next is another technique that's quite common to acoustic, and that's picking out the bass note as a separate note from the chord. That's why it's so important to know where your roots are so that you can use the pick to find them. Starting with the E chord, playing a typical bass chord pattern, which sounds something like this. What I'm doing there is picking out the lowest note of the chord and then strumming the upper part of the chord. And I'm using all down strokes. Play along. Now when I pick that low note, I kind of stop the pick and then continue. And that makes for a cleaner sound. Using the same technique on the A chord. This is where the aim of the pick becomes very important, because if you're not aiming properly, you're going to hit the wrong strings. It's okay to look down at your right hand once your left hand is in place and concentrate on hitting that bass note. D chord. The G chord would be the same technique. That's such a big chord, it sounds really nice with that technique. The C chord with the root on the 5th string. And also our B7 chord. Now let's play a little pattern using that technique, and here's what we'll do. We'll play G to C to D to G. That'll give you a chance to play bass notes on each string. Okay, play along with me. Here we go. 3, 4. And back to G. Again. Now, a variation on that style of picking is to use 2 different bass notes in the chord, and the simplest way to go about it at the beginning is do like we did, play the lowest note and then play the next highest note, and you alternate between the two, so it sounds like this on the E chord. All downstrokes. Remember, you pick the low note and then strum the upper part of the chord. When you use that same move on other chords, you'll find different bass notes. A. Actually, on the A chord, you can use the low E string as well. The D chord. Now, that chord gets pretty high, so I'm going to use the open A string as a bass note here. Your ear pretty much will tell you what works and what doesn't. For the G chord, that's the 6th string, 5th string. You can also try 6th string, 4th string. That's a little trickier because you have to skip over a string to pick, so that might take some practice. For the C chord, that's 5th string, 4th string, root, oops. Now here's a variation I'm going to show you. This is something you would have to work on, but you can get a little better sound out of the C chord like this. C, and then shift that 3rd finger over while keeping the other fingers down. Only one finger moves. Keep that 3rd finger moving, keep the other fingers down. And the same thing also works for the B chord. First of all, try it with the 5th string and 4th string alternating. And for the bigger sound, get the 2nd finger moving like that. Keep the other fingers down and move only that one finger, and it sounds like this. Now I should point out that on all of these picking patterns here, you can use the thumb the same way that you use the pick, and the thumb just plays downstrokes, like on the E chord. You pluck that low string and then brush it across the high strings. When you have a chord that has an alternating bass, it's still the same. The difference between the thumb and the pick is that the thumb has that mellow sound, the pick is much brighter. For that reason, some people use a thumb pick. It's a pick that you strap right onto your thumb, and it still allows the free use of the bare fingers. It's kind of a compromise. Now, using a thumb pick is somewhat specialized as a technique. I don't use one much personally, but it's one that a lot of people find very comfortable. So it's something to check into if you're serious about playing acoustic.